At Mom's birthday, she threw away the envelope I gave her, laughing. Don't bring embarrassing gifts next time. The room laughed with her. I picked it up, told her it was a fully paid home renovation, and walked out. Now she won't stop calling. Subreddit. Growing up, I was basically the extra while everyone else got the spotlight. So I left, upgraded my whole life, and moved on. Shockingly, the people who ignored me suddenly cared again. Let me rewind and explain. My name's Logan Pierce. I'm in my late 20s now, working in marketing, living in a place I actually like, and spending my life with people who don't drain me. Not perfect, but steady. If you met me today, you wouldn't guess where I started, or how early I learned that some homes aren't really homes. Back then, when I was 12, life still felt simple in the way kids think simple means safe. That morning started like any other. Dad, Daniel Pierce, was walking around the kitchen half dressed for work, checking something in the sink, tapping the counter, pointing at my backpack like I'd forgotten something again. He had this quiet way of teaching without making it a lesson. How to tie something so it doesn't slip. How to check a tire with your thumb. How to hold a tool without hurting yourself. Stuff you don't appreciate until you're older. His boots were by the door, his hard hat already in the back seat of the truck. He ruffled my hair on the way out and said, "Don't sleep in math today." Quick forehead tap, always the same routine, predictable in a good way. Mom, Tracy, was at the table scrolling through her phone. She gave him this barely there nod. No smile, no drive safe, not even eye contact. At the time, I didn't have the words for that kind of distance. I just noticed it, stored it somewhere, and grabbed my lunch. I headed to school thinking nothing was wrong. Second period, the intercom crackled and asked me to come to the office. Teachers gave that sympathetic, go-ahead look, the kind that already tells you something's off. In the principal's office, my mom was sitting in a chair with her legs crossed and her purse in her lap. She looked like she was waiting for a meeting to start, not like she'd gotten news that would break most people. Principal stepped out. Mom didn't waste time. "Logan," she said, voice flat, "your father collapsed at work. Heart attack. He didn't make it. Just like that. No warning, no pause to ease into it, no emotion behind the words. My whole body felt like it dropped out from under me. I remember not being able to breathe right, my hands shaking, my eyes burning. I was 12. I didn't have any kind of shield for that sort of news. I cried hard and loud, right there in front of her. She reached over and patted my shoulder twice. Slow, stiff, like she wasn't sure where the bones were. Then she pulled her hand back and stared at the wall. I didn't understand why she seemed fine. I didn't understand why she wasn't falling apart with me. I didn't understand anything. That night, I went to my room early, but I couldn't sleep. The house felt wrong without Dad's boots by the door and the sound of him rinsing his coffee mug. At some point, I heard my mom's voice through the vent. Her room shared a wall with mine. She was on the phone with Marla, one of her friends. I wasn't trying to listen, but the walls were thin and her voice carried. "Honestly," she said, tone low but not shaken, "it's better being a widow than being divorced. People have more sympathy, and I get to keep everything. No fighting over who gets what." Then she laughed. I stared at the ceiling, gripping my blanket so hard my fingers hurt. I didn't fully understand money or assets or adult relationships, but I understood one thing. You don't laugh the night your husband dies. The funeral came a few days later. Everyone who knew my mom thought she was a symbol of strength. They hugged her and cried on her shoulder. She held tissue after tissue and dabbed her eyes at perfect moments, like she practiced it. But Aunt Marianne, Dad's sister, stood off to the side with her arms crossed. She didn't say much, but she didn't hide what she saw either. When she hugged me, she said, "If you need me, I'm here." Simple, real, not performative. Mom didn't look her in the eyes the whole service. After Dad was lowered into the ground, relatives walked around whispering things like "poor Tracy," like she'd been crushed by the weight of the world. All I could think about was her voice the night before. That laugh, those words. By the time we got home, the quiet in the house wasn't comforting anymore. It felt like the air itself knew something was wrong. I didn't have the vocabulary for it at 12, but I knew this much. Whatever safety I thought I had died with my dad. This is when the house stopped being mine, and Dad started getting removed piece by piece, like he never lived there at all. A few months after he died, I came home one Saturday and found a man in our kitchen, Gavin Holt, leaning over the counter like he'd been there for years. Tracy was smiling in a way that didn't match her face, like she'd rehearsed it. "This is Gavin," she said, too cheerful. "He's been helping me with a few things." He shook my hand with both of his like he was already my stepdad. I was 12, confused, but old enough to recognize when someone was being positioned as the next chapter. I nodded and went to my room. A few weeks later, Gavin's kids, Tyler and Chloe, started appearing. They were polite in that smug, practiced way. Tyler walked like he owned the hallway. Chloe wandered the house like she was appraising it. Then, one night at dinner, Tracy announced they were getting married. No conversation, no checking if I was okay, just a flat, "We're getting married," like she was reading a calendar reminder. Gavin smiled at me as if he expected applause. I didn't bother arguing. It never helped. After the wedding, things changed fast. Dad's study was the first to go. It had been untouched since he died. His chair in the corner, his binders, his framed photos. I came home one afternoon, and Gavin's laptop and files were spread across the desk. A big framed diploma hung where Dad's photo used to be. Dad's chair was gone. Tracy said she donated it. His pictures were boxed up in the garage like junk waiting for trash day. When I stood in the doorway staring, Tracy just said, "Stop being dramatic, Logan. Life moves on." A few days later, I found what was left of Dad's workshop. The corner of the garage that used to smell like sawdust and motor oil was torn apart. Tyler was dragging a bench inside like it was his personal gym. Dad's tools were dumped into a plastic tub, handles sticking out like broken limbs. I asked Tracy what happened, and she cut me off mid-sentence. "Stop being selfish. Tyler needs space. You don't even use that stuff." Gavin didn't defend me. He never did. He just shrugged, like erasing the man who raised me was normal. It became clear fast. Their comfort mattered. Mine didn't. The next few years slid by like that. Middle school into high school, each month adding a little more pressure. Tyler shoved past me in hallways, called me soft, knocked my things off counters and called it an accident. If I reacted, he laughed and called me sensitive. Chloe poked at smaller things. My clothes, my food, my expressions, then pretended innocence whenever I looked annoyed. The moment that locked everything in happened at a school presentation. I had worked on a project for weeks, something I cared about. Parents stood around taking pictures. I looked for Tracy. She never showed. That night, she posted a picture of Tyler at his basketball game, with the caption, "So proud." She hadn't forgotten. She'd chosen. Gavin had exactly one moment where he tried to tell her she was being unfair. She didn't even raise her voice. Just said, "Don't start." And he folded. That told me everything about him. After that, I stopped expecting anything. I stopped trying to earn space or fairness. Instead, quietly, I started keeping track. Not out of anger, just memory. Every comment, every shove, every moment they made it clear I didn't belong. Not revenge, a ledger. And once I started keeping it, I never stopped. I'm a grown man now, and I know how to handle myself. I can fix things, read paperwork without getting tricked, and stand on my own feet. But none of that came from the house I lived in. I learned it from Aunt Mary Ann, in a place where nobody yelled and nothing was a performance. By the time I hit my mid-teens, her cottage became the only quiet spot I had. I'd bike there after school or spend entire weekends helping her with whatever she needed. She never made a big deal out of it. She never sat me down for talks about being a man or taking responsibility. She just did things and let me do them with her. The first time she taught me something real, it was brakes on her car. The pads were worn, and she rolled up her sleeves like it was nothing. "Get the jack," she said. No lesson, no lecture, just instructions. She showed me where to loosen bolts, how to keep pressure steady, where not to put my fingers unless I wanted to lose them. When I messed something up, she didn't scold me. She showed me how to fix it. It was the first time I realized learning didn't have to come with someone calling you dramatic or selfish. Another weekend, she had a dent in her hallway wall from moving a table. She handed me the putty knife and said, "Try it." I didn't know what I was doing. The patch looked terrible the first time, lumpy and obvious. She scraped it off and showed me the angle to hold the knife, how to feather the edges, how to sand without overdoing it. "Drywall lies," she said. "You just have to know how to make it tell the truth. Simple. Straight. No ego." Money was the same way. She didn't pry about what happened at my house, but she knew enough. She set a small notebook in front of me once while we were having lunch. "Bills first," she said. "Then savings. Wants last." She didn't say it like advice, more like directions everyone should already know. And then there was paperwork. She let me sit next to her while she went through a contract for a roofing repair. "Read slow," she said, "and look for the part they hope you miss." She pointed out tiny fees, vague wording, and the places people hide junk hoping you'll sign without paying attention. Nobody had ever shown me stuff like that. Tracy taught me nothing except how to avoid setting her off. Marianne taught me how to function. Back home, things were getting worse. Tyler was louder, Chloe was bolder, and Tracy didn't bother hiding her impatience with me anymore. Gavin stayed in the background unless Tracy needed backup. By 16, during dinner, I brought up college. I'd been looking into business and marketing programs because I liked figuring out how things work behind the scenes. I said it calmly, not expecting cheering, just hoping for a normal conversation. Tracy shot it down before I finished the sentence. "We can't afford that," she said. "We have to think about Tyler and Chloe first." Tyler leaned back like he'd won something. Chloe looked proud of herself. Gavin didn't blink. He stared at his plate like the discussion didn't involve him. I waited until after dinner and followed Tracy to the kitchen. "What about Dad's insurance?" I asked. "And his savings?" She didn't hesitate. "It's gone," she said. "I spent it raising you. Food, clothes, everything. You should be grateful." Her tone made it sound like I'd asked for something outrageous. I didn't believe her, and she knew I didn't believe her. She didn't care. I went to Mary Ann's the next day. I didn't say much, but she could tell something was off. She made coffee, set the mug in front of me, and walked to her bedroom. When she came back, she had an envelope. Old, thick, edges worn from being held too many times. "This is from your dad," she said. My chest tightened before I even opened it. She explained it slowly. Dad had noticed Tracy moving money strangely. He didn't accuse her out loud, but he wasn't blind. He'd come to Mary Ann a few weeks before he died and told her he didn't trust what was happening in the house. He wanted to make sure I had something no matter what. Inside the envelope were the documents for a protected trust. Money he'd saved and transferred quietly into my name. Mary Ann was listed as trustee, so Tracy couldn't get near it. "He told me," she said, "if anything happens to him, don't let her ruin your future." I didn't cry. I didn't say much at all. But something settled inside me. A kind of calm that comes when someone finally confirms what you suspected all along. I didn't tell Tracy. I didn't confront her again. I didn't argue about college, or money, or fairness. I just tucked the documents back into the envelope, thanked Mary Ann, and went home with my head clearer than it had been in years. That was the day I shifted from trying to survive under their rules to quietly preparing my way out. I didn't need them to approve it. I didn't need them to know. I just needed to execute the plan. I'm not proud of how numb I got during those last years in that house, but numbness was the only way to move without getting dragged into their chaos. If I reacted, they'd win. If I stayed quiet, I kept my progress. So I chose quiet. The last 2 years of high school were survival and strategy. I focused on school because it was the one thing they couldn't take from me. I worked small jobs, stocking shelves, mowing lawns, fixing basic stuff for neighbors, anything that added a little more to the savings I kept separate. I guarded the trust Dad set up like it was a secret blueprint. Nobody knew about it. It wasn't shame. It was protection. Every weekend I could, I ended up at Mary Ann's place. She didn't ask for updates or emotional reports. She just kept adding tools into my life without calling them lessons. One week we replaced her alternator. She let me do most of it, stepping in only when I was about to put something backward. Another day she had me help her read a repair estimate from a contractor. She pointed at vague lines and fees. "See this?" she said. "This means they hope you won't notice." She made me rewrite the questions to ask him. We called together, and she let me handle the call. "You should practice negotiating with low-stakes people," she said afterward. "By the time it matters, you'll sound natural." She was right. I got better at spotting nonsense. I learned how to answer confidently without sounding scared. I learned how to say, "That doesn't work for me," without raising my voice. At home, nothing changed. Tyler kept pressing every boundary he could find. He'd shoulder check me in the hallway, take my food from the fridge, block the TV and say, "Relax, dude, you're so tense," whenever I didn't react. Chloe kept stirring small fires, dropping comments she knew would get under my skin, then acting confused when I didn't take the bait. Tracy stayed consistent in the worst way. She'd throw in a comment about how I never helped enough, or how Gavin's kids appreciate things more, as if comparison would motivate me to perform for her approval. It didn't. I had already shifted away from wanting anything from her. My silence wasn't defeat, it was discipline. The only person my age who knew me without the house noise was Jaden Brooks. He was the kind of friend who didn't make everything dramatic. We hung out at his place, grabbed cheap food, talked about normal stuff. He didn't pry about my family unless I looked done, and even then he just said things like, "Man, you're gonna get out of there and not look back." He was right. And then graduation came. The morning after the ceremony, Tracy and Gavin called me into the living room like they were about to hand down a sentence. They sat side by side on the couch, stiff like judges. "You're 18 now," Tracy said. "You can't keep living here for free." Gavin added, "It's time for you to stand on your own." He said it like he'd contributed anything to my life. They paused, giving me a moment to break down, argue, panic. Something. They wanted a scene. They wanted me to feel small one last time. I didn't give them that. I said, okay, calm. No shaking, no sarcasm, just agreement. Tracy blinked because she didn't know what to do with a peaceful answer. Gavin cleared his throat like he'd rehearsed lines I didn't give him an opening to use. I'll be out this week, I added. I saw confusion on both their faces. They expected me to beg or lash out. They didn't understand they'd already used up every emotional reaction I had. I went to my room and began packing. It didn't take long. I filled 2 suitcases with clothes, a box with my school stuff, and a second box with a few things connected to Dad. Things Marianne made sure Tracy never touched. That was basically everything I owned. While I packed, Tyler walked by the door and said, "Didn't think you'd actually go." I didn't answer. He shrugged and walked off. Chloe peeked in at one point, raised her eyebrows and said, "Guess it's really happening." I didn't answer her either. Tracy didn't help. Gavin didn't offer anything. Nobody asked where I was going or how I'd support myself. They were too relieved I wasn't resisting to risk questions. Marianne showed up with her car later that afternoon. I didn't call her, but she knew. She always knew. We loaded my boxes in silence. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. Tracy stood at the doorway, arms crossed. She didn't say bye. Gavin hovered behind her, awkward, waiting for her cue. Tyler and Chloe didn't come out at all. I looked at the house one last time, not because I would miss it, but because I wanted to see it clearly. The paint, the door, the windows, the place where Dad's voice used to echo on Saturday mornings, the place that turned into something else after he died. Then I got in Marianne's car. As we pulled away, I felt the weight lift in a way that didn't feel dramatic, just definite, solid, like a door finally closed. I didn't leave angry. I didn't leave broken. I didn't leave seeking revenge. I left because they didn't understand what they just threw away. And by the time they figured it out, it would be too late for them to fix it. College was the first time I learned what normal felt like. Not perfect, just steady, predictable, and mine. No walking on eggshells. No checking the temperature of a room before speaking. No dodging someone's mood. Just life. I threw myself into business and marketing classes. The workload was heavy, but it was a different kind of weight. I stayed up late because I wanted to, not because I was hiding or avoiding anyone. Internships came next. Small companies, real tasks, people who treated me like someone worth training. For the first time, I was building a future instead of just surviving a house. I met Nora Bennett in a normal way. We ended up in the same elective, sharing a table for a semester. She was calm, quick to understand things. Not loud, not nosy. The first time I mentioned my family, she didn't lean in for gossip. She just nodded and said, "Got it. Tell me what you want me to know, when you want to." That alone told me she was different. We went from classmates to project partners, then from partners to spending time together outside class. No big dramatic moment, just steady steps. I didn't have to perform for her. I didn't have to hide anything. She didn't treat my past like entertainment. That kind of steady support hit harder than anything loud or flashy. By the time we were near the end of college, we were sharing an apartment. It wasn't fancy, small place, mismatched furniture, but it was ours. We split bills, cooked simple meals, sometimes crashed on the couch watching whatever we could afford to stream. We did life together without forcing it. The quiet ease of it was something I hadn't realized I'd been missing my entire childhood. I graduated strong, high GPA, solid recommendations, internships that actually mattered. I got a junior position at a marketing firm, the kind where you started at the bottom, but at least you were on the ladder. I climbed fast, not because I was lucky, but because I was disciplined and didn't waste energy on pointless fights anymore. Year after year, I kept moving up. I saved. I budgeted the way Marianne had taught me. I bought my own apartment. Clean layout, good light, a place I earned every square foot of. Between steady raises, years of saving, and the trust my dad had protected, I could afford what mattered without showing it off. Later, I bought a good car, the kind that started every time and didn't sound like it was dying. Those were small wins to some people, but they were big to me. I didn't post any of it online. I didn't need applause from people who hadn't been there when I needed them. The only people who knew the full picture were Marianne, Nora, and Jaden. When I told him later, everything felt stable, until Marianne had her scare. I got a call from her neighbor saying she'd slipped outside while bringing in groceries. She was bruised and shaken. It wasn't life-threatening, but it rattled her, and me. I took time off work without thinking twice. I flew back home and stayed with her for a while. I cooked, cleaned, ran errands, and handled her appointments. She tried to brush it off like it was minor, but I could tell she was shaken by how fast things could go wrong when you lived alone. She was more embarrassed than hurt. Don't hover, she said. I'm not hovering, I told her, even though I was. A few days into helping her recover, I came back from grabbing groceries and saw a familiar car parked outside her house. Chloe's. She was visiting one of the neighbor girls, apparently. She saw my car, snapped a picture, and by the time I put the groceries on the counter, the news had already traveled exactly where I'd hoped it wouldn't. Tracy showed up the next afternoon. I heard her before I saw her, calling Marianne's name in that overly sweet tone she saved for public places. She walked in like the caring mother checking on her wounded child. Oh my goodness, Marianne. Why didn't anyone tell me? The performance was instant. She gave me a long hug she hadn't earned. It was the kind of hug people give when they're not sure what your life looks like now, and they want to gather intel. How's work? She asked. Are you still doing whatever it was? I told her the name of my position. She nodded slowly, calculating. Do you like where you live? Is it close to the city? Good pay? Her questions slid out like she was filling out a mental checklist. Then she turned to Marianne. He always was so capable. Just needed the right guidance. Marianne didn't even blink at the lie. Then came the real angle. You know, families need to stick together, Tracy said. Especially now that everyone's finding their path. Maybe we could all reconnect more. Maybe you could help out with some things. Tyler and Chloe have so much going on. It would mean a lot if you stepped up. There it was. Not even 5 minutes of pretending before she started hinting at the opportunities she saw in me. I didn't get angry. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't give her the satisfaction of any reaction. I answered her questions in short, plain sentences. No fuel, no details she could twist, but she kept fishing. Maybe you could come by sometime, she said. We should talk about plans. You're doing so well. Surely there's a way we can help each other. She meant help her. When she finally left, the air felt lighter. Marianne looked at me and said, That was quick. I nodded. She didn't come to check on you. No, Marianne said. She didn't. And that was the moment it all came back into focus. Tracy's concern ended where opportunity ended. Nothing new. Just another line in the ledger. Looking back, this is where silence stopped being patience and turned into enforcement. Up until then, I let things slide because reacting only fed the wrong people. But every ledger fills eventually. It started with Marianne posting a photo. Nothing dramatic. Just a picture of me standing in my new apartment after a promotion, boxes half unpacked, her caption saying, Proud of this young man. She meant nothing more than what she wrote. But Tracy saw it. A day later, she messaged me like the last decade hadn't happened. Logan, I miss you. We should reconnect. No mention of the years she ignored me or the mess she created. Just a reset like her older choices expired with the season. Then she added the invitation. She was hosting a combined celebration, her birthday and Tyler's engagement announcement. You should come, she wrote. Family should be together for big moments. Family. Interesting choice of word. I didn't respond right away. I read the message twice, then put my phone down. I didn't feel anger or excitement, just clarity. Tracy only reached out when she saw value. A few days later, something worse came through. Nora got a message request on social media from Tracy. The first line was, Hi, Nora. So excited to meet you soon, with too many exclamation points and fake warmth dripping between them. Then the jab, Our family has certain standards, so I'm sure you were raised well. Where are your parents from? There was no confusion about what she meant. It was micro-racism wrapped in politeness, delivered with a smile emoji. Nora showed me the message without commentary. She didn't need to explain how disrespectful it was. I read it once, breathed in, and that was it. No explosion, no speech. Just another entry in the ledger. I replied to Tracy a day later. I'll attend. I'm bringing Nora. No explanations. No apologies. When the night came, Nora and I walked into the restaurant's private room together. The place was loud already. Relatives talking over each other, silverware clattering, someone arguing about seating. A full, messy family crowd. The second Tracy saw us, her smile dropped a little but came back fast. Oh, Logan, she said. You came. Then she looked at Nora too long, like she was taking inventory. Tables were cramped together. People were moving chairs, bumping into each other, shouting for more water. The whole room felt like barely controlled chaos. Tyler and Chloe took center stage with a giant box wrapped in metallic gold paper. They made sure everyone was watching as they presented it to Tracy. We got you something incredible, Tyler said loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. Inside was the kind of expensive smart appliance meant to impress people. Tracy squealed, clapped her hands, and hugged them dramatically. A few relatives even clapped along. We really wanted to show how much you mean to us, Chloe added. People murmured approval. Tracy dabbed her eyes like she'd won an award. Then she turned toward me. And you, Logan? She asked, eyebrows raised. Did you bring anything? Her tone already said she wasn't expecting much. I took out a small envelope from my jacket. Plain. White. Quiet. Tracy's face dropped like she'd been insulted. An envelope? She said. Seriously? Before I could hand it to her, she snatched it, held it up between two fingers like it was dirty, and said loud enough for multiple tables to hear, "This is disappointing." A few relatives snickered. Someone whispered, "Typical." Then she tossed the envelope onto the table. Not placed, not set down, tossed. It slid across a plate and bumped into a wine glass. The room went awkwardly quiet. I walked over, picked it up, brushed off a breadcrumb, and held it in my hand. That envelope, I said plainly, contained a full home renovation package I already paid for. Electrical, plumbing, roofing. The whole place brought up to code. Several relatives froze mid-bite. Tyler's mouth actually fell open. Tracy blinked, confused, then switched to panic. Logan, why would you hide that? That's ridiculous. Why put it in some tiny envelope? Her voice was rising. A couple people at the next table turned their heads. I didn't hide it, I said. You threw it away before you bothered to check. Tracy spiraled instantly. You always do this, she snapped. You give things in the most ungrateful, passive-aggressive way. You make everything about you. I am your mother. She hit the word mother hard. And you show up here with your little envelope like you're proving some point? She wasn't done. And bringing her, she said, nodding sharply at Nora. Without warning? This is our family's night. You don't get to just insert yourself and your girlfriend and expect everyone to rearrange for you. Nora stayed calm, but several heads snapped toward us. Then Tracy said it. Real family sits up front. The core family. Everyone else fits in wherever. She stared at Nora while she said it. That was the switch. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't match her chaos. I just spoke clearly. My job pays well. I own my apartment. I own my car. Everything I built without help from any of you. A few relatives shifted like they wanted to disappear under the table. I set up that renovation for you because I thought it was the right thing to do, I said. But since you made it clear who counts and who doesn't, you don't need anything from me. Tracy opened her mouth, probably going for another dramatic line, but for once she didn't get to control the moment. Marianne stood a little straighter and said, steady and sharp, Stop pretending you raised him. You spent years tearing him down. No yelling, no drama, just truth. Tracy whipped toward her. Marianne, stay out of this. But the momentum was gone. The room felt different. Tracy tried switching into sweet mode again. Honey, you misunderstood. Let's just calm down. I shook my head, slipped the envelope back into my jacket, and reached for Nora's hand. We're done here. Nora stood with me. Chairs scraped. Relatives stared. Tyler muttered something but didn't follow. We walked out through the chaotic noise of the room. The clatter, the half-whispers, the embarrassed silence in our wake. There was no rage in me, no shaking hands, just a clean line drawn. Policy enforcement. By the time the dinner was over and the door closed behind us, I felt drained in a way I hadn't felt since I was a kid. Not sad, just tired of carrying weight I never asked for. Nora didn't push me to talk. Marianne didn't either. They both just told me to take a breath. The next morning, I made a decision I should have made years earlier. I took the renovation package Tracy threw away and transferred it to Marianne. She tried to protest, but I wasn't taking no for an answer. She needed it. She deserved it. And she was the only one who'd ever treated me like family without conditions. The contractor let me reassign the work before anything started. We signed a quick change order and put the job under Marianne's name. Then I booked a quiet vacation. Nothing flashy, nothing for show. Just a calm place by the water for me, Nora, and Marianne. A place where no one shouted over anyone. No one asked for money. No one tried to rewrite history. Just peace. From the moment we got there, it felt different. No deadlines, no drama. Just the sound of waves and the three of us figuring out what to do with free time that wasn't stolen or pressured. Me and Marianne ended up talking about Dad more on that trip than we had in years. Not heavy emotional sessions, just simple stories. The way he fixed things with whatever tools he had. The way he'd talk to people like he already trusted them. The way he wanted things to be fair. Even when life didn't cooperate. It felt like closure without needing to force strong emotions or digging into old wounds. Just remembering him the way he was. A few days in, I asked Nora to take a walk with me before sunset. Nothing dramatic. No beach setup or audience. Just us. I told her how steady she'd been through everything, how she treated my past like a fact instead of a problem, how she helped me build something real. Then I asked her to marry me. She said yes immediately. No hesitation. No dramatic gasp or tears. Just genuine happiness. When we walked back, Marianne saw the ring and actually cried, wiping her face with the back of her hand like she didn't want to make it a big scene. It was the happiest I'd seen her in years. We took one photo, me, Nora, and Marianne. No filters, no posing. Just real. While my life got calmer, Tracy started unraveling. The texts hit my phone in bunches. I'm your mother. Family is family. You don't get to cut me out after everything I did for you. I ignored them. I wasn't playing that game again. When she realized I wasn't reacting, she switched tactics. New numbers, private calls, voicemails that jumped from sugary to spiteful in the same breath. Logan, sweetheart, please call me back. Next message. How dare you ignore me? After everything I sacrificed. Next one. Call your mother. It didn't stop there. She dragged relatives into it. I started getting messages from cousins I barely knew. Hey, your mom is really upset. Maybe you should check in. Aunt Tracy says you're shutting everyone out. She wants to fix things. Give her a chance. Nobody asked what she had done. They just repeated whatever she fed them. Then she found out about the engagement, probably through one of those same relatives who couldn't mind their business. That's when the tone changed. She didn't congratulate me. She didn't ask about Nora. She didn't ask how it happened. She texted, I can't believe you didn't tell me. I'm your mother. This is my moment, too. Then, we need to talk about the wedding. I should be involved. Then, your fiancé should meet with me before any decisions are made, as if she owned the event. And then, almost immediately, the real motive surfaced. She sent a long message outlining things the family needs help with, including money for Tyler's wedding, help for Chloe, who was struggling, repairs for her house, and finally, you're successful now. You owe it to us. Not owe it to me. Owe it to us. Owe it. The same people who pushed me out without hesitation. I didn't respond. I didn't argue. I didn't explain myself. I'd learned by then that reacting gives her oxygen. Marianne, however, wasn't staying silent. She answered one of Tracy's guilt messages with, he doesn't owe you anything. Leave him alone. Short, sharp, and final. Tracy tried calling her after that, but Marianne blocked her without hesitation. Eventually, I sent my own last message. Nothing dramatic, nothing emotional. Stop contacting me. Do not reach out again. Then I blocked her number, blocked the new numbers, blocked the social media accounts she made to get around it. Silence finally settled. The vacation ended with the three of us sitting outside our cabin, Nora leaning into my shoulder, Marianne sipping tea, all of us tired but content. That was the moment I realized something simple. I wasn't running away from anything anymore. I was choosing what stayed in my life. And I didn't feel guilty for choosing the people who actually showed up. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.